Hey everyone, today I'll show you how to use tool masks using the Axiom mod. When I've asked my friends what they struggle with the most when building with this mod, it's understanding tool masks, and that's usually because it's a node-based feature. Essentially, you have this interface that allows you to basically drag and drop logic and mask parameters that change the way your Axiom tools will interact with the world. This is easily one of the most useful skills you can learn from Axiom, no matter what level of building you're at. For now, let's ignore the logic parameters and focus strictly on the masks so you can understand what's going on here. Now, what's important to know about masks is that they're essentially if-then statements. First things first, to activate the mask, you want to drag one of these nodes over to this box until you see that yellow line at the top, and then once you place it, it's activated. For the block mask, if the block you're affecting is the one you choose in the mask, then it will get changed. For the above mask, Axiom will check if there is that block you choose in the mask above the block that you're painting, then it will get changed. Same thing for the below mask, but it just checks below instead of above, obviously. So you can probably start to see a pattern with tool masks. Basically, it's if the condition is met, then paste the blocks in this way in the world. That's pretty much how these work. But I'm going to go down the list so you know what each one does. The near mask is pretty interesting. Whatever block you choose, it will check in a radius around that block, which is a number you specify, and then alter those nearby blocks as well as air blocks and the blocks that you chose in the mask. This can be played around with using some logic, but we're going to get into all that later. The neighbor mask will check directly next to your mask block in all directions, then change the blocks next to it. Adjacent does the same thing, but only affects blocks horizontal to the mask block on the X and Z coordinates. But keep in mind, the same blocks can be adjacent to one another, and those can also get replaced if you don't use any logic parameters. The biome mask will only affect blocks in a target biome. Pretty easy to understand, just keep in mind you can type into this little text box to search for biomes you are wanting. The y-axis mask will allow you to mask a certain y-coordinate or range of y-coordinates, and there's this little drop down where you can choose to select equal to, not equal to, less than, greater than, less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to your chosen y-coordinate. The angle mask is probably the most confusing mask for beginners. What's important to know is how angles are calculated in Minecraft. Essentially, all the angle mask is doing is checking the angle of whatever slope you are modifying. And it's also important to keep in mind that the angle mask does not work from 360 degrees like you might expect. It works from 90 to negative 90 degrees. And here's a helpful visual to understand where the angles are in a Minecraft space. Next to the angle parameter, we have the range parameter, which essentially just increases the range of degrees the mask affects in both a positive and negative direction based on whatever number you put there. The best way to visualize this mask, though, is when terraforming something like a mountain. You can see that when I have my mask set to exactly 90 degrees, basically just the ground layer will get affected, and it stops before it reaches the slope of the mountain. Now, if we change the angle to something like 60 degrees with a range of 20 degrees, adding a little logic to change it only to stone, you can see it's affecting all stone blocks from 40 to 80 degrees, which makes a nice top layer to the mountain. Like I said before, this is the hardest default mask to explain, and you really will get a feel for it once you play around with it yourself. The last three masks are pretty self-explanatory. The in selection mask will check if the mask is inside a selection you make, which can be useful when inverted using some logic. The can see sky mask will check if the blocks you're painting have sky above them, and the surface mask will paint just the surface blocks of a build. The real fun comes when we get to playing with the logic parameters. Okay, so there's four main logic components: or, and, not, and offset. You can place masks and logic inside these bracket looking nodes, and this is how logic will get calculated. The OR logic will allow you to add multiple masks inside the bracket, and they will all affect your tool. That means that whatever you put in here, they are not mutually exclusive, so both can happen simultaneously. Here you can see that I wanted to affect either grass or stone in this selection, so I used an OR logic parameter to achieve that. The AND logic, by contrast, whatever you put in here, every single condition must be satisfied for your tool to affect anything, as opposed to the OR logic, which you only had to have one condition satisfied. So in this example, I wanted to paint a specific angle, but I only wanted the stone to be affected. So I put both the angle mask and the stone block mask inside an AND logic parameter, which made it so both conditions had to be met in order for my brush to change any blocks. The NOT logic is useful, as anything you put inside of it will not get affected, as the name suggests. As I paint this mountain, I didn't want any grass to be affected, so I put it inside the NOT logic parameter, and sure enough, no grass blocks were affected by my tools. The offset logic is probably the most confusing. It was confusing to me when I first was diving into tool masks. Conceptually, it's a pretty simple idea. Anything you put inside of it will be offset based on what X, Y, and Z coordinates you put in. So I wanted to put some grass on top of my grass blocks, so I put a grass block inside the offset logic parameter and changed the Y coordinate offset to -1. Notice how I put -1 instead of +1. And I don't actually know enough about this mod or Minecraft to say exactly why, but you have to think inversely when using the offset logic. Putting -1 in the Y coordinate will offset your mass in the positive Y direction if you're looking at an F3 screen. And the same goes for X and Z coordinates as well. If any coding geniuses could let me know why this happens, please do. The coolest part about logic parameters is that you can get really creative with how they interact with each other and create some super complex masks as long as you understand what they are doing. And I hope that my little explanation here has helped you understand what they are supposed to do. The second to last thing to show you is Lua scripting, which is a powerful method to create some of the most complex masks imaginable. Lua is a programming language, and if you can leverage it, you can do just about anything with your masks. I unfortunately didn't learn an entire programming language for this video, so for me, using those masks are a hypothetical pipe dream in all honesty. And even if I wanted to, those masks deserve an entire video of their own. They're so complex, and there's so many things you can do with them. There are some geniuses over on the Axiom Discord that have made some pretty cool Lua masks, and if you're interested, I'd recommend checking them out. The last feature to show you are the presets. This is a massive time saver because if you create crazy complex masks, you can save them for later. Just hit the plus sign and name it whatever you want. Here's a mask that I saved which helps me remove all shrubs and trees in a given area, or this angle mask which I use when putting grass on top of mountains. And the final thing worth mentioning is that you can use this text box here to type in commands for various masks if that's more your style. Personally, I like dragging and dropping stuff, but I encourage you to try out different things and do what fits how you like to build. There's so much you can do with tool masks, and like I've said, it's probably the most useful feature I've leveraged in Axiom, yet I still have more to learn about them. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. But yeah, more Axiom tutorials and projects hopefully to come soon. I hope to see you in the next one, so see ya!